Former President Donald Trump is now aboard his plane, and they're about to depart to Miami, Florida, where he's scheduled to appear in federal court tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern to be exact. And when he arrives in that courtroom, he'll be in a place no other former president has stood before, facing federal counts, 37 of them relating to the mishandling of classified documents. Trump has denied any wrongdoing and mocked the indictment during a campaign rally in Georgia over the weekend. Meanwhile, Americans are revealing their thoughts on the indictment against Trump, with a new ABC poll finding nearly half of Americans, 48%, agree with the Department of Justice's charges. 35% say they disagree with the case against Trump. However, that same poll found that nearly half Americans believe the charges against Trump are politically motivated. So I guess it depends on which team you're on if you like the charges or not. Notice that. Hello, everybody. You're watching Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-host Kayleigh McEnany. And also joining us today, Fox News contributor Lisa Booth, host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, saving us all, Kennedy herself, and Fox News contributor and former Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz, author of the new book, The Puppeteers, the people who control America. Great to see all of you. Jason, I'll come to you first with your thoughts.
It begs the question, why didn't the president just give the documents back? But at the same time, I'm telling you, the comparisons to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden are just dramatic. It was not an equal application of justice. I was the chairman of the Oversight Committee. I issued subpoenas, preservation letters. And you know what? Hillary Clinton set up her home computer to bypass the Federal Records Act on the very same day that she started her Senate confirmation hearing. Untold number of people without security clearances had access to those documents. Some were so classified, even I, as the chairman, couldn't go back and read them because they were that sensitive.
You know, before we move on, just real quickly, some of the papers that Biden was accused of, or that he took, I mean, they have the papers.
Right.
At least the ones they think they have. They haven't done all of the cherry picking, I'm certain of that. You got to go through those 1,850 boxes at the Delaware University that they pulled, apparently. But some of those documents he took when he was a U.S. Senator. That's against the law. Absolutely
against the law. House and Senate members, you are not allowed to take even one document. And Joe Biden took an untold, unspecified number of documents. How come they didn't go in there guns ablazing, trying to go figure that out with cameras in tow?
Don't we know?
No, we still don't know.
Actually, I think we do.
Yeah.
Kennedy?
And there are some differences here between Hillary Clinton. The thing that strikes me about this is anyone who seeks the presidency, if they mishandle documents, if they obstruct, if they commit conspiracy, all that stuff, they should be prosecuted. There should be an equal application of the law, regardless of who did it, what office they held, what office they were seeking. You're absolutely right. The differentiation here, of course, are the conspiracy and obstruction charges. And those are the ones that have 20 years each. And that's why he's potentially facing so much time. It wasn't just having the documents. And also what struck me was the specificity in the indictment. And I'm wondering if that was on purpose a contrast with the Bragg indictment that we saw here in New York City, which was so incredibly vague. And this one, on the other hand, laid out so much in such great detail.
Or it's just skill. Like one side's more skilled than the other at doing that. Vivek Ramaswamy, who's also running for president and for the GOP nomination, this weekend took the media to task over its coverage of the former president's indictment. Let's watch.
With due respect, I think it is shameful that I, as a competitor to President Trump in this race, have to ask questions that the media isn't asking. The job of the political media, if it has one job, is to hold the U.S. government accountable.
Yes, we know that.
And instead, we're doing the bidding. You're seeing the media doing the bidding of the U.S. government. No. Ask the question. Get to the bottom of what Biden told Garland and what Garland told Jack Smith. If the same shoe fit the other foot, you would not take their word at face value. Do not take their word now. Get to the bottom of it. Let's actually restore journalism in this country. That's what's actually missing, is getting to the truth.
So, Kaylee, what Vivek is showing us is that this is now a GOP primary issue, and it may come down to money, who can raise the most. But as far as he's concerned, he's also said he's ready to pardon this president should that, on his first day in office, if he gets elected, should that be necessary.
Yeah, and he asked the key question, which is why aren't journalists asking what the Attorney General knows? It's the key question, and here's why. We got rid of the independent counsel statute a while ago. An independent counsel would be independent of the DOJ. A special counsel is not. I talked to a former DOJ official who said the special counsel is akin to a U.S. attorney. They report to the Attorney General. You can even go back and look at codes of federal regulation that say significant moments are reported to the Attorney General. When we are at a moment, our country is so divided right now, this will divide it further. We need to hear from Attorney General Merrick Garland. He cannot hide behind the special counsel. We need to hear from Chris Wray. If we don't hear from them by tomorrow, after this indictment happens, I will have some serious questions as to why, particularly at a time, you pointed out the polling, and it also shows CBS, Republicans, 61% say Trump's indictment won't change their view. 14% says it makes their view of the former president better. So you have essentially half the country who views this one way through a political purview, and we need to hear from the Attorney General of the United States.
So what I'm picking up from what you're putting down, Lisa, is that if you take an infusion of support for Trump and you add it to that, about a third or so of the base, what does that mean? How does that translate into politics?
Well, I think before that, I just want to say, I think obviously the biggest frustration for conservatives is just this unequal application of the law, which we've all seen and witnessed under the Biden administration, which is infuriating. I mean, it probably helps him in the primary, but I feel that it hurts him in the general election. And that's the concern here is if you look at that ABC poll, only 31% of Americans have a positive opinion, a favorable opinion of Donald Trump. Now, 31% also have a favorable position on Joe Biden, so they're equal in that. But we're not living in an equal country, right? We're living in a time of bias in the media, a time where the FBI is interjecting itself in elections. So we're fighting an unfair fight heading into the 2024 election. So my belief is that Democrats want to make this entire election on one man. They want to make it about Donald Trump. My concern is that if that's what happens, we lose in the general election because then we're not focusing on the issues that matter to the American people. We're making it a choice between, two men versus the issues that are driving the conversation.
How will that be any different than his 4 years as president and he still got stuff done? I mean, this media took him on at every account. And when it wasn't them, he was being impeached by Democrats on the Hill who made impeachment much more political than it even was with Bill Clinton.
Well, of course, he faced an uphill battle on a lot of things, and he was able to work against a lot of those odds, particularly on foreign policy matters. Sadly, a lot of what he's done has been reversed because when you do things via executive action, it's undone the next time you get a Democrat our president in the mix. But, I just worry about, I want this election to be about so much more than just two individual people. I want it to be about the issues that are facing the American people. I mean, so many Americans are suffering right now, whether it's the economy or even looking at things that are happening along the southern border, that's, impacting all of America, right? And so I just worry that when you make the election about one person where, perhaps there's more people that don't like him than like him, that harms us heading into the election.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say. I mean, it's going to help him in the primary, you say, but in a general, does it grow the tent is the question, and let us drill down to those things that matter. All right, I want to get to you, but one more time, Jason, I want to put this out. Some Democrats are scoffing at the idea that Trump could still be elected if found guilty and are already talking about impeaching Trump if he's elected again. Look, it's Eric Holder.
The notion that you could have a trial, defendant be convicted, somehow win the election, be sworn in as president, or whenever it happens, that seems inconsistent with our notion of fairness, of the rule of law. At that point, I would hope that an impeachment proceeding might be considered, not only considered, brought, and ultimately he would be removed from office. The notion that a convicted felon would serve as president of the United States is absurd.
Okay. It is a founding principle, innocent until proven guilty. Apparently, across the aisle, they're not getting that across from Republicans?
It's pretty rich to hear from a guy who believes so wholeheartedly in the rule of law. Eric Holder was held in contempt of Congress. The statute says he shall be prosecuted, and it was given to the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, and they did not pursue that.
They shall not.
They shall not. They decided they shall think about it, and then they decided not to. That's an absurd notion. Again, I think they're trying to win this case in the court of public opinion. It is not about the rule of law for them. That's why they released the photos the way they did. I thought those were gratuitous at best. If you look very closely at the photo that they released of the spilled box, making it look sloppy, and then zoom in on it, it's newspaper clippings and it's pictures of the president. There's nothing classified in there that's so
pointed that out on Truth Social.
I mean, there's nothing in there. And they released the audio tape of Donald Trump before the indictment. They are fighting this in the public's mind because they want to defeat him. They can't do it on the merits. They want to fight him and make sure that he does not become the next president.
That helps in the Southern District of Florida because a jury of his peers are going to be Trump supporters, right? So he's going to face a much favorable.
Well, but he's in South Florida, so that at least means that there could be a playing field here that's more even with Eileen Cannon there. Yeah.
Exactly.
So South Florida is key here.
I live there.
That might be why Democrats are thirsty to see if they can, get a change of venue.
They're not going to have a trial
DOJ.
before the election. They're not going to have a trial before the election.
We'll see. All right. Okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.